I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. The whole thing feels like a slow-motion train wreck, but I couldn't stop watching it happen. I guess I should start by saying my wife and I have been together for 7 years. We've been through a lot. Bought a house, planned vacations, survived all the usual relationship stuff. But there's this gnawing feeling I can't shake anymore. Something I wish I'd noticed sooner. It wasn't some huge red flag at first, just these little moments that didn't add up. At least not at the time. You know how it is. Someone starts working late a bit more often, their phone gets glued to their hand, maybe they're a little more distant than usual, but you tell yourself it's all nothing. Life gets busy. Stress at work. That's what I kept telling myself. Then, it started feeling like I was living in a different reality. I'd come home expecting her to be there, but she'd be out again. She'd tell me she was working late, but I had this strange gut feeling. I'd wait for her, sometimes hours. And when she came home, she was distant, almost like I was the last person she wanted to talk to. If I asked her about the day, her answers felt rehearsed. Not in a "I'm hiding something big" kind of way, but more like she was avoiding my eyes. But the real kicker? Her phone. It was always right there with her. It was fine at first. She'd leave it lying around, no big deal. But then she started taking it everywhere. To the bathroom, into the kitchen, and if it rang while I was around, she'd walk away to take it. I tried to shake off my suspicion, but one thing kept bugging me. Who was she talking to? The tipping point came when I found out she was going to a spouses-only event for her work. Now, I've never been one to be overly jealous or controlling, but I thought we'd go together. It was a big deal, one of those corporate functions where everyone mingles, and it felt like a perfect chance to unwind. Then, out of nowhere, the day before the event, her boss calls me. Casual, like it was nothing. "Hey, I just wanted to confirm. Your wife's all set for the party, but I'll let you know that she's bringing someone else." Wait, what? I tried to process it. He told me it like it was no big deal, but I could hear something in his voice. A weird, offhand way of saying it that made everything click into place. My wife had told me nothing about this. Not a word. I stood there in disbelief. Was I really the last to know? Why hadn't she told me? And who the hell was this person? I didn't confront her right away. I wasn't sure what to do or even how to process it. Part of me wanted to just pretend I never heard anything and act like everything was fine. But the other part of me, the part that couldn't ignore the gut feeling gnawing at me, couldn't let it go. So I waited. The next morning, I casually asked her about the party, just to see what she'd say. I didn't want to seem like I was accusing her of anything. I asked, "So, who else is going to this thing? I know you mentioned it, but you didn't say who you were going with." She froze for a split second, like she wasn't expecting me to bring it up. Then, she smiled, but it felt forced. "Oh, yeah. I'm going with Tom from accounting. He's been so helpful lately with this new project." Tom from accounting? Really? I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I kept my voice calm. "That's nice. I didn't know you two were close. We've just been working together a lot," she said, her smile faltering for a moment. I nodded, trying not to let on how much it bothered me. But the thing was, this Tom? I'd never heard her mention him before. Never. Not once. And now, suddenly, he was the one going with her to a spouses-only event? Something wasn't right, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. Later that day, I decided to check her messages. Not something I'd ever done before, but this felt different. I told myself it was just a one-time thing, just to see if she'd mentioned Tom before the event, if there was something that would make this all make sense. I was in the living room when I grabbed her phone. I don't know why, but I felt like I was betraying myself just by looking at it. She was in the shower, and I had maybe 5 minutes. So I unlocked it, and there it was, a conversation between her and someone named T. No last name, no context. Just the way they spoke to each other. They weren't talking about work. They were making plans. "Can't wait for tonight. I'll be in the black dress." You know, the one winking face. I stared at that message for what felt like hours. It wasn't just a casual work conversation. It was flirtation. Subtle but unmistakable. They weren't talking about a project. They were talking about something else entirely. My heart sank, and for the first time in ages, I felt sick. I wasn't just worried anymore. I knew, and the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. She had been lying to me. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I had to confront her. No more avoiding it. I didn't wait long. As soon as she stepped out of the shower, I didn't even hesitate. I walked up to her, phone in hand, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who's Tom? And why didn't you tell me you were going with him to that party?" She froze, her face going pale. For a second, I thought she might deny it, brush it off like everything else. But she didn't. Instead, she looked at me, her eyes full of guilt and something else I couldn't quite place. It's not what you think," she stammered. "I didn't want to upset you." "Upset me? By what? Lying to me? Hiding this from me?" She didn't answer right away. I could see the internal struggle in her eyes, but I didn't care anymore. I wasn't asking for excuses. Finally, she sighed, the truth slipping out. "Tom and I have been seeing each other for a few months. I didn't know how to tell you. I don't know what hurt more, the words themselves or the fact that I was standing there, hearing it from her after all this time. I couldn't breathe for a moment. Everything I thought was real was a lie." "Why?" I managed to choke out. "Why him?" Her eyes welled up, but there was no sympathy in me. "Not now. It just happened. I don't know how. I never meant to hurt you." I wanted to scream, to throw something, but I stayed still. I didn't know what to do with this pain, this betrayal. "I need time," I said, and walked out, leaving her standing there in silence. The next few days felt like I was walking through fog. My mind was numb, and the pain? It was something I couldn't describe, like a weight sitting on my chest that wouldn't let me breathe. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't even stand to be in the same room as her. She tried to talk to me, tried to apologize, but every word felt hollow. "I'm sorry," she'd say, but there was no emotion behind it. It didn't feel like an apology. It felt like a rehearsed script. And every time she said it, the betrayal dug deeper. I started questioning everything. Our marriage, our memories, even the smallest things she had ever done. Had it all been a lie? Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Every night I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment over and over in my head. The coldness in her voice, the way she casually admitted it. It was like she was telling me about some casual affair. Like it didn't matter. And maybe, to her, it didn't. But it mattered to me. I couldn't even bring myself to confront her properly after that. What was there to say? "I know what you did, and I'm furious, but I don't know if I can forgive you." I didn't want to beg for her to come back to me. I wanted her to feel what I felt. And then came the moment when everything clicked. The anger, the pain, the confusion. It all turned into something else. I realized something that made my blood run cold. I didn't need her anymore. I'd been stuck in this marriage for so long, telling myself we were happy. But the truth? She didn't respect me. She didn't value me. I had spent so long trying to protect her, to protect this relationship, while she had been lying, sneaking around with someone else. I was done. I had a moment of clarity, a sharp, brutal moment where I realized I wasn't the victim anymore. I wasn't the one who had been betrayed. I was the one in control. I didn't need to sit around hoping for some grand gesture from her to make things right. No, I was done. But I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. Not after everything. The hardest part was making the decision. How do you walk away from someone you thought you'd spend your life with? It wasn't just the affair. It was everything. The lies, the manipulation, the way she treated me like I was just there for convenience. And I couldn't let it slide. I needed to show her that I wasn't some fool who could be walked all over. I didn't want to ruin her life, but I needed her to feel what I felt. Betrayed, humiliated, and alone. So I started playing my own game. I knew the perfect way to get back at her without it being just petty revenge. I wanted it to be something that hit her in a place she'd never expect. Took a little planning, but I started making moves. I had some savings tucked away, money I had put aside for a rainy day, but now it had a different purpose. I made some connections, talked to a few people who could help me out with a business venture I'd been dreaming about for years. And, just like that, I started turning the tables. Slowly but surely, I was becoming something I had never imagined before. Successful. Powerful. I started making moves that were completely independent of her, building something of my own. And just when everything was falling into place, I reached out to her boss. I made sure he knew exactly what had been going on, no details spared. I didn't care about the aftermath. I wanted her to see what her choices had cost her. The day I saw the look in her eyes when she realized what had happened, I knew I had won. Her affair, her lies, it didn't matter anymore. I was better than that. I was stronger. I had rebuilt my life from the ground up, and now I didn't need anyone, least of all her. The dust settled, but the silence between us was deafening. The first time I saw her after everything unfolded, she looked like she didn't know who she was anymore. She came to the apartment, standing at the door like she had no idea whether she was welcome. Her face was pale, and her eyes, filled with guilt, couldn't meet mine. "Why?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you just tell me you were done? Why did you have to destroy everything?" I didn't even look at her. I'd moved on. I wasn't that person anymore, the one who begged for answers, who begged for closure. I had gotten everything I needed, and what I had left now was freedom. "I didn't destroy anything," I said quietly. "You did. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it. I'm not going to fix this for you. I'm not going to play the victim in your story anymore." She looked like she wanted to argue, to make some excuse, but she couldn't. It was too late for that. There was nothing she could say to change the truth of what had happened. I didn't get any satisfaction out of watching her crumble, but there was something deep inside me that felt lighter, free. It was hard at first, not going back to her, not second-guessing myself. But every day, I woke up stronger, more certain that I had made the right decision. I started seeing things for what they really were, and what I had once thought was love wasn't. It was a version of love built on lies, and I was done living in that world. As for her, she had to face the consequences. The fallout at work was inevitable. Her reputation had taken a hit, and her relationship with her boss, well, I made sure that wasn't something she could hide behind. She lost more than she ever expected. But that wasn't for me to fix. I had to focus on me, and for the first time in a long time, I could breathe without feeling like I was holding myself together for someone else's sake. I'm not going to pretend it was easy. Some days, it felt like I was drowning in the emptiness of it all. But I found strength I didn't know I had. And as time passed, I realized something. This wasn't just about getting revenge on her. This was about finding myself again. And in doing that, I discovered I was stronger than I had ever thought possible. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. And honestly, felt pretty damn good.